you can't have 100% peace if you're harboring hatred on anyone, if you have not forgiven anyone. There's not anyone in my life, I would tell you that right now, that I have not forgiven. Many people have hurt me. I don't approve what they do. I believe in that judgment day. I don't have them in my life, but I forgave them because that was also medicine for me.
Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you didn't catch the first part of this episode, go back to last week, take a listen. Here's the second piece. We hope that you guys are getting everything that you need out of these conversations. We appreciate you tuning in and listening and sharing and subscribing and all that kind of stuff. Thanks so much, guys. Have an amazing day and week, and we will chat with you soon. Enjoy.
I was living a life, my kids, my great-great-great-grandkids were taken care of. Like, I had built that type of empire. Became worldwide. The company I started in China, that's a different story. I don't want to kind of get into that, but we started out as partners in that, and they kept the name, changed the word, one word, and created a brand new company selling the same product, selling everything. And they took that company public, and it went public for like $4 billion. I got zero out of it.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
literally.
I didn't know
But
that.
yeah, I know.
Was that a
I don't
security?
share that.
That was a security
It
company?
was a company. When I first met him, they were producing the pregnancy test kits. And before him, the company I was dealing with, there was more, because we went to a company that says, here's what we want. Because in the US, it was way, way too expensive to produce, and the turnaround time was ridiculous. I was able to go to China and get it done for a fraction of what the US. And I had a team of engineers. We grew the company from 0 to 1,200 employees, literally. But in previous to that company, there was more stuff, Dwayne, going out the back door, selling knockoffs of my product than I was selling to retailers. And so I put a stop to that. I was looking for a company that someone I could trust. I finally found someone that I really liked, but he's never done security tags or anything even close to that. The only technology was a pregnancy test. And I said, look, here's a technology. We'll give you everything that you need to build it, the resources, the plants, the everything. What finance, we'll do it, but I need a partner that I could trust and rely on. And we had a great run for 20 plus years, almost 25 years with him until he took the company public, which lead us to my earlier conversation. Now I'm 49 years old, training for Ironman. I've never been healthier, never been in better shape than that moment in time financially. I kid you not, man. I never even dreamed of, growing up a little kid, an immigrant from Jordan, that I would have the lifestyle that I would have right now. I wasn't quite at $1 billion, but I was maybe a year, 2 years away from hitting that number. And that was, to me, kind of a number, a target that I wanted, right? So
Sorry,
I'm sorry, go
Adel,
ahead.
can I just I just want to clarify for the audience and actually for myself, to be honest with you, because it's fascinating. But so you start off building out these security tags, which would be, just so the audience is understanding, it's like, these are the security tags you'd see on clothing at a retail store. I think you had Macy's as a contract, didn't you? I think
That is correct. Macy's,
correctly.
Nordstrom's,
Yeah.
Walmart, Target, virtually every retail out there we were doing business with.
And then you expand to RFID, which is the chips that are in debit cards, are they not?
There are. We weren't in the debit card business. We were more on the security side of business,
Yep.
which gave them a lot more insight, a lot more intelligence, better inventory, more accurate inventory. Because the security tags, I mean, they work phenomenally in reducing shrink, right? Because all it does, it just keeps the honest people honest. If you want to rip that stuff off, you can. But
Right.
the retailer had no knowledge of what just left your store. If somebody stole a $20 item or they stole 200 $10 item. There was no way of knowing. All it did was an alarm. And unless they, apprehended the shoplifters, they really didn't know what they just walked out with. RFID gave them data and intelligence to know what item, how many items, the color, the SKU, everything they could possibly want to know so they could replenish. Because a lot of the retailers were losing a whole lot of business because on their system, inventory system, it shows that they had those products at the store level, but in real life, they didn't on the shelf because they were shoplifted. Most retailers, not all, do only inventory once a year because it's too expensive. So, or now a manager is going out and, doing, spot checks and spot inventory. But, in the grocery chain, it's easy because you're going down shelves. In the retail stores, it's a lot harder because you have SKUs, you have sizes, you have colors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So retailers were losing a lot of money on products that they didn't have available to be able to sell to consumer. Again, back then, there was no online business, right?
And then
So we
and then
brought in a technology that was intelligent.
how do you get into facial recognition then too?
No one really talks about it in the retail world, but retailers privately and secretly was using that to recognize shoplifters. So without mentioning any names, one particular retailer that we were doing a lot of work with would catch a shoplifter and said, listen, I have two choices. Either A, call the police and prosecute you, and trust me, we will prosecute you. And they were notorious for prosecuting every shoplifter because they wanted to send a very loud and clear message. Or two, you sign this release where I'm not going to call the cops, but you are not allowed back in my store or any of my stores for a year or whatever the timeline is. And if you agree to that and you sign that, then I'll let you go. And that form was a release to be able to upload their image, their picture onto a database of shoplifter that prevented them from going. So it never violated the consumer's privacy at all because the only data that was uploaded was that of shoplifters, and it only would detect shoplifters. The downside to that is you got to remember, we're talking 15, 16 years ago. It was in infancy stages. So we had about, 80 engineers or, R&D wants to say they had a 95% accuracy. That was never the case. We're probably closer to 80% accuracy at the time. So they had to do a lot of validation and verifying about, how facial recognition and that same technology now is used worldwide at airports, immigration posts. Everyone is using it for various different reasons. And the same is true with GPS tracking. It's funny, GPS tracking started, being on, retailers. One of our very first customers, believe it or not, will blow you away because I was blown away, was Salvation Army. It's like, what does the Salvation Army want with a GPS tracking? And they had dwell time and all that stuff. Well, what I learned, later on is Salvation Army goes to an estate sale or an estate. They load up the truck with some extremely valuable stuff, and the driver would just pull over into a parking lot, open the truck, take out all the valuable stuff, give it to a partner, or friend, or whatever it is, family member, and then go to the store with the junk or
Right.
whatever it was. So the GPS now allowed them to uh, create a route that they had to stay on anytime a driver deviated off the route or dwelled for an extended period of time other than a light. Then it would trigger an alarm and notify headquarters, and they would launch an investigation. It was sophisticated. The other thing, believe it or not, we started using GPS tracking. They got in trouble a little bit, but in pharmaceutical bottles, because a lot of the drug addicts would break into pharmacies at night and take all the opioids or whatever. So we would actually put GPS tracking chips into a lot of these bottles. And when they break in and take it, the police was alerted and they were able to apprehend, um, um, the drug users.
Oh,
And the same is true with high valued items, where now we created a first GPS that lasted months because we were able to let it go to sleep. No one's ever done that, right? So a chip that gets to its destination. So a shoplifter take the product, take it to a warehouse or a home. Uh, uh, we have tons of pictures of warehouses, bro. It looks bigger than Sam's or Costco or any of this stuff, and 100% of it is shoplifted, and they're literally open to the public to come and shop. There were some houses that were converted into boutiques, but these chips now were on merchandise, and it went to sleep, and it notified the police to monitor and be able to build a case and prosecute. So we were the pioneers in a lot of that technology.
okay. I got to ask you on a side note here. This video footage from the kidnapping, where the Ring camera was off and they were able to capture the images. How do they do that?
Well, I don't know that the camera was off. The camera can't be off unless it's on. So I'm not sure
I,
who alleged that technology or the camera was off. But the camera's always recording. Now, whether it's retaining how much retention, that's a completely different story. You saw at the Super Bowl of the backlash that they had when Ring and Amazon teamed up to have one of the worst possible commercials, and it was for finding lost dogs. But I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, that
yeah,
commercial, the Super Bowl
vaguely.
commercial.
I watched the Super Bowl, but I missed the commercial.
Oh, bro, it was
Yeah.
all over the news, and there was a severe backlash. The Ring sales plummeted, and a significant amount of Ring users disconnected their cameras because they were saying, "Hey, we turn on your cameras, and as your cameras are on, we'll look. If you ever lost a dog, it communicates with all the other community cameras, and we can find your dog and alert you when a dog has strayed away or if anyone stole your dog." That was literally the commercial.
Hmm.
And everybody like, wait a minute, who else is looking at this? Are they able to find people and faces? And I'm disconnecting this crap. And listen, I'm all about privacy. I don't want anyone invading my privacy, and neither do you. No one wants to be monitored. Every time I'm always leery about cameras and phones, and when they're on or not. But someone is always listening, and no one wants Big Brother to be listening. And that was a major setback for Ring, and it was used inappropriately, right?
On a
And I
marketing level,
believe,
on a marketing level,
uh,
that's about as bad as the Bud Light commercial.
yeah, 1000%, right? It's so easy to drink Bud Light. You know what you are. Yeah, yeah. And you would think, man, not all the ideas are the bright ideas. Some of the brightest could come up with the dumbest ideas.
Yep.
And sometimes we just don't know how consumers react to them. In theory, it's a great, brilliant idea.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, wait a minute. If you lost a dog, what if there's technology that exists today that allows me to find your lost pet? Who would not want it? Listen, I spoke at enough events, I should say, that said we could identify 95% probably of all criminals. And that's a high percentage. Like, whoa, how is that even possible? Well, technology existed back then. But y- who uses that technology and how it's used is what's limited us from identifying. Who would not want to solve every murder, every robbery, every burglary? Who would not want to do that? Of course we want to do that. But the big fear, and rightfully so, is Big Brother watching. Who else is utilizing this technology? Because between the GPS tracking that's on your phone, between facial recognition and cameras or license plate, information data that we have, if a crime takes place in a pinpoint location, I'm able to identify the time, the crime, and I'm able to identify who was in that vicinity at that time, and then rule out all the good ones, and then narrow it down to the one that probably likely committed that crime.
Mhm.
So the technology been around for a long time. Do I envision at some point down the road, because you got to remember, you and I will never think this way. Gen Alpha, which is the newest generation right now, I don't know how these kids are thinking. I don't know if they're thinking, if someone like is kidnapped, someone of significance, someone of importance, an influencer child is kidnapped, and somebody says, "Hey, wait a minute, if your kid had a little chip that we can embed into their bloodstream,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
then I could tell you where your kid is at any given time. I could find him and locate him and rescue him." Well, listen, as a parent, somebody comes to you and you're young and says, "Hey, look, there's a technology available. We inject this into the bloodstream. It acts as a GPS tracking, and you only turn it on. God forbid anything ever happens. If your kid ever drowns and goes in the pool, we're able to identify it. If your kid's ever in a car accident, we're able to tell you all these things, these harmful things. And if anyone ever abducts your kid, we're able to know immediately and go rescue your kids within minutes of him being abducted." What parent would say no to that?
Yeah, it's a pretty good sell.
That technology is available today. It's a chip in your body, right?
Yeah, got it. Like a
And it
chip in
could
the
be
dog.
anywhere. It could be anywhere in your body, right?
Right.
It's infused and injected. Dog, they do that for dogs right now, but
Yep.
it's a little too big. But the newer technology, it's micro technology, right? And from a parent standpoint, you'd be a schmuck to not want that. The ones that have pure heart says, "I'm in." But the question is, who's monitoring and how is that data being used? Because no one wants to feel the privacy. We value our privacy. Now, other countries, you know, communist countries may enact that and people don't have a choice. I see the benefits, significant benefits of utilizing that technology. The downside is the abuse that could potentially take place. And that's the fear that I think every single one of us around the world, at least I believe, humanity has a concern. But that's our generation, right? That's
Yeah.
our generation. I don't know. I remember my oldest brother, refused to get a phone for the longest time. I was like, "Bro, like, what are you sitting like?" He goes, "I don't want. I value my freedom. I don't
I
want
don't want
people to call me and
I don't want
anything
them
else. I want to
tracking
go
me.
out and not find me." Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want
Well,
them tracking me.
even
Who's
exactly.
tracking you,
Well,
bro?
but even back then, Dwayne, there wasn't the tracking technology wasn't out even available. He refused. He valued his freedom and his privacy. Can you
Yes.
imagine a young kid says, "No, I value my freedom and my privacy. I don't want a phone." We're evolving. Our thought process is evolving. These kids are evolving. They're looking at the world completely a different lens than we're looking at it. It's inevitable that there will come a moment in time. Listen, bro, who carries cash now anymore? Right? So burglaries, robberies, all that stuff could be eliminated at some point in time. But we're not there yet. The world, I mean, and you see what's going on in the world is just not
I
even
think it
close to being there yet.
I think as a society too, we also have to come to the realization that technology is evolving to the point where there really is no privacy anymore. Our phones are listening to us, Alexis listen, whatever. I mean, our computers, like they're, we think we have this, you know, I also think though too is like who's tracking me? Like who cares? Nobody cares about me. If I'm a criminal, yeah, that's a different story. But if I'm a good human being, probably nobody has interest in me.
Yep.
So
And
I
and,
don't know.
and that's how we're thinking because we've been abused in the past. Technology was abused and used, in inappropriate ways. But I think there will come a moment in time where it's going to be accepted. And you just said it, but well, who cares? They already know. Like, listen, I love facial recognition on every app that I turn on. Now I don't have to go in and type in my password and all that stuff. And before I was really nervous, even with the IRS, it says, "Do you want us to use a no, no, no?" But I had to go through so many different steps to get to where I wanted to. Today is like, okay, go ahead and use it. You already probably have my face and you already know me from the TSA and everything else. So, and now so there's so much benefits. Now the benefits outweigh the risk of being monitored. And who cares? As long as we're good people and We're not criminals. And I think that criminals should have every reason to worry. Here's how I look at it, man. The security tags did not prevent theft. All it did is kept the honest people honest.
Right.
Back to what I was saying earlier, my moral compass. Every single one of us is tempted at some point, right? And we could justify those temptations, whether it's financial gains, whether it's lust, or whether it's infidelity, whatever it is. We could justify those temptations, and it's humans. Jesus was tempted. So if God himself could be tempted, of course, every single one of us. But what makes me a good father, what makes me a good husband, what makes me a good person is my moral compass to choose the right thing every single time. And I think that's what hopefully technology is going to be able to do. It just give us a moral compass to always do the right thing. The enemy is going to lure us in by temptation. And now we just have to think, man, I'm going to get caught. There's no way out of this. And if I'm going to get caught, there's no way out of this. And I don't want to spend it in jail. I'm likely not to do it. And if you feel you could get away with it, you're going to do it. So security tags did that. So people who wanted to shoplift and get away, like, oh, I don't want to take a chance and have that thing go off and get arrested and bring shame to me and my family. And I'm not going to do it. And that's all it did. Just kept the honest people honest. And I think that's technology used correctly would do the same.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for the share.
So back to the company.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you that, I got an offer in November 2014. It was at 380 plus stocks, which we were close to $1 billion, but not there yet. And for me, that was a big number. And then I got that knock on the door. And when I realized it was pancreatic cancer, and we caught it at an early stage, you're going to love this story. Every year, my heart is for kids.
Sorry, can I say one thing?
Yes.
So I know you back at this time, and
yes, you do.
Like, you are a stud. Like, you are a stud. You're healthy. You're vibrant. You're smart. You are. I mean, it is banging for you.
I'm on all cylinders, bro.
You are
firing on all cylinders. Yeah.
Fire. So I just want
I was on fire,
people to know it's like, but you were just so healthy too.
Yep.
And so like, I remember when I heard that you had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I was like, what? Like, I mean, I remember
how's that even possible, right?
Tennille and I were like, that they're bullshit. There was, like, honestly, like, it was a denial of, like, there's no way. Because I mean, yeah. Anyways.
But you're right. I mean, that was, and honestly, I was in denial. I was like, there's no way. Like, what do you mean? And I went into the Adele mode and, I had my first surgery, and the first thing I wanted to do is get that as much cancer out. And they were giving me options, and bro, so let me tell you about options. So the very first doctor I met, his name is Dr. Harm. I'm like, ooh, that name by itself was scary enough.
Next.
And yeah, exactly. And then next and next and next and next. And literally I exhausted every single medical cancer center that I could possibly get a hold of. And I think they all had one thing in common. There's not much to do. And I started going with my diet. Doctors are like, don't do this. You should not go on diet. You need to go in chemo. You need to do all these things, the protocol. And I had zero interest in doing any of the protocols, which kind of almost upset them, the fact that I wasn't following their directive and their orders. So I went on my own. Diet. I cleansed literally for the first 30 days, pure water and lemon juice. That's all my intake. I wanted to get rid of as much cancer as I possibly can. I wanted to cleanse myself. And for the next literally entire year, not a single piece of solid food went into my mouth. Everything was juiced, greens, and I would just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Of course, there would be avocado, a lot of snacks in between. I was eating lots and lots of nuts. That was my source of protein. Zero meat products, zero anything. And the nuts, I was chew to liquefy them. but I was blending most of them. I would just like take almonds and just kind of juice all that stuff up, or walnuts or whatever it is. I was I was adamant to win because I had something to fight for. It wasn't easy. I could tell you right now, there was a lot of times where I felt defeated. I felt tired. I felt exhausted. Um, there's a part of my body that says, come on, that's it, man. When you just run a marathon, you don't have a breath. Like like an hour seems like the pain, bro, was out of this world. It's hard to describe pancreatic pain, but I will tell you this, there's not a more painful experience a human being can ever endure than pancreatic pain. It is the most awful, like blinking your eye or moving just the slightest little move, and the pain went from a 10 to a 12, and it became so unbearable.
And
I
so you go in for surgery, you don't do chemo, you go diet
no.
instead. So you go
I
diet
go through
instead.
surgery, and everything that could go wrong in the surgery went wrong. That's what prompted me to start now seeing all these various different institutions to figure out I was leaking pancreatic fluid more than I was told, more than anyone ever recorded. So that you have a bag that captures the pancreatic fluid, and it usually lasts on the average 72 hours for the average person. I was lasting an hour, Dwayne. Every hour on the hour, I would fill up the bag, and they didn't know what the heck was causing it. And the turmoil was, if I was not in the hospital and I was at home, now I had to change my bag every hour. Well, at night when I'm sleeping, the kids, my wife and 4 kids are all teenage, had to be on rotation. So let's just say that my wife is at midnight. My son Brandon would be at 1 o'clock. My daughter would be 2. My other daughter would be 3. Matthew would be at 4. And these kids, what's the chances a kid's going to hit snooze, which unfortunately was happening. And if I was too weak and I didn't wake up to change it myself, the pancreatic fluid, which is a digestive enzyme, will back up and start digesting my own organs.
Oh.
And I will be in the hospital, not for a day or two. I'll be in the hospital for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even longer. And that's what I was enduring. That's why I needed to bring a stop to that. And now I'm checking with all these universities. As a matter of fact, there was a team of doctors from, I think, every university that I just mentioned that just kind of came together. And I was a case study to understand how is it possible a human could generate that type of pancreatic fluid so frequently. And so I was a kind of a unique case in that. And things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was very selective early on as who within my company I shared this with, even my family. I didn't even want to tell my mom because I know my brother was diagnosed a month earlier with stage 4 liver cancer, and that consumed and overwhelmed my dad. My dad had, I'm sorry, overconsumed my mom. My dad had passed a few years earlier, so she was already going through a lot. I didn't share it with my friends. I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me or have empathy on me or anything, bro. I was just like, I could deal with this on my own. But the only ones of course, I had to break the news to my brothers and my sisters, but they had strict orders not to share with anyone. I mean, no, zero social media, zero church, zero cousins, no one. I was really private about this. Of course, Scott, Humphrey
Mhm.
is a brother, so I don't consider him outside. And Tony reached out and, was very supportive while I was going through that journey. But that's it. I was super, super secretive and for the wrong reasons, by the way,
Yeah,
just so you
and I
know.
was
It
gonna
wasn't,
ask
it
you
wasn't
about
for the
that.
right
What
reason.
what what was behind that for you?
I wanted everyone to see me as the strong gladiator, that the image that I portrayed. I didn't want to see anyone see me in my weakness. I was never in my life. And my wife, she said, what's the one thing you and your wife ever struggled with is my vulnerability. I just had this mask that I was never vulnerable. The only time I think my wife ever seen me vulnerable is, when we were homeless and she gave me the gold to sell. But I've always been a very strong, at least on the surface. Like that was the mask that I was wearing. That I just didn't want people to see me in that weak stage, um, or see weakness in me. And I think I just didn't want to see it neither myself. I just wanted to, not anyone to feel sorry for me. And I will tell you this, um, my wife had strict orders that anyone that ever came in the hospital that had negative vibes and says, man, I'm so sorry or whatever it is, like literally they start crying, I would say, get the F out of my room. Like I was that kind of guy. I wasn't, oh, come on, man, feel sorry for me. I was like, no, if you're not going to bring back positive vibes, I'm going to beat this and I'm determined to beat this. And if you're not going to be here for me with that same level of attitude, I don't want you anywhere near me. That was literally my attitude. And that's why I think I didn't want to share with a lot of people because I didn't want to get that level of sympathy or empathy that most times that that you would want to give someone or a friend that says, man, I've just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. There's a part of you that feels that feels breaks your heart. Like you just want to hug them and hold them. But at that time, I didn't want, I didn't want that. I just wanted to be in gladiator mode.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you look back on that in hindsight, is there a two-sided coin there? Knowing that, hey, that strength, that fortitude, that absolute focus of getting better and getting healthier and getting yourself through it was absolutely required. And then is there another side of the coin of reflection on, relationships, vulnerability, weakness? I'm curious what your learning experience was on
Oh,
that. Because
absolutely.
and I think I just want to frame the thinking for the audience here is like, we go through this. I mean, we're telling an unbelievably, heroic story of overcoming pancreatic cancer in one of the worst ways. But we go through this daily in our lives. So that's why I want to ask the question, because this is, I'm interested in the real two-sided on that.
If you're asking me if I was to go back in time, would I change anything? And the answer, yes, absolutely, I would.
Would you?
I would be far more vulnerable. I would have my friends around me praying with me because I deprived them. I deprived many people of the opportunity of being there, being present, being supporting me. I would never want a friend to deprive me, but I wasn't thinking that way. I was looking at it from a completely different lens. If I didn't talk about it, if I didn't do it, if I overcome it, I will overcome that. But I deprived myself the ability to have people praying over me, church praying over me, people that loved me and cared for me praying over me. I think that, deep inside, um, Dwayne, there was also that um, fear of, I wanted to deprive people from also rejoicing over my sickness. And I've never mentioned that to anyone ever in my life. You're the first person that I'm sharing this with. And, there's a part of me that probably wanted to do that because, you know, the sad part is with success, not everyone is happy for you.
Mm.
And sometimes the closest to you are the ones that are most envious and jealous. It's just an probably ugliest feeling that you, and I'm sure your audience could relate to that. That sometimes, when you share your success or you share your God's blessing, you would think that everybody would be happy for you the same way that you would be happy for others. But I realize that that's far from the truth. Even in my car, just if I drive my exotic car and I pull into a mall, not everybody was happy getting out of it. You could just see the looks on people's faces, and there's probably subconsciously, not consciously, but subconsciously, I didn't want anyone to rejoice over my illness, and that's an awful thing to say, because I don't know if that's true, but that's probably why another reason of why I didn't want anyone around me that um, that wanted to rejoice over my sickness. Not to say that there are people that would, but the world is full of awful, ugly, evil people, bro. not everyone is always happy for you. Not everyone wants well for you or even for your family. Um, so deep inside, subconsciously, maybe I believe that that might have been also a driving factor that I didn't want that. And I wanted to win on my own. Today, I could care less.
Yeah.
What you want, you're not going to be in my life. I promise you. If you're that kind of person, I already sense it, and you're not in my inner circle right now. The only people I allow into my circle is people like yourself, people that I know would be happy for me, would be encourage me, people that I could be vulnerable with, that I could share my darkest secrets with, and you're not there to judge me or criticize me or fix me. I don't want to be fixed by anyone. I just want people to hear me and understand me and feel with me and maybe pray for me, but support me in that way. Those are what I would call friends, not acquaintances.
Yeah. Well,
And I
listen,
had a lot of acquaintances.
I want to honor you for your for coming out with that and being honest like that. I mean, that's it's powerful from my seat listening to it and hearing you. Those are things that people think, and then they judge themselves for thinking that, but you are saying it, and it's real and tangible, and then it shares to the evolution that you have gone through all of this, and who you and how you show up in your spirit and your faith and your grace. And I think that is like, that's one of the most powerful things that I love about you, man, is seeing that. I think you used the word really well. Like you called yourself a gladiator. I mean, there are certain, if you want to be successful in business, there are certain, things that you have to be prepared to do, not only physically in terms of the hours you have to put in, but emotionally. And it creates an identity sometimes that may not empower you in other areas of your life. If I could maybe describe it that way.
Absolutely. You're so true, bro. So I'm so glad you touched on this because my evolution, as the word that you used when you first started this podcast, is I saw vulnerability as a weakness. Early on, someone dear close to me said to me, "Men don't cry." I was 4 years old, and when my dad died, my best friend in the world, I could not shed a tear. Inside my heart, I was crying, I was weeping, but on the outside, I couldn't. I There was not a day for the first year that I did not visit my dad's gravesite. I had that thing so manicured. I would oil the plate. I honored him in the most beautiful um, funeral service. The only way I knew how to say, "Daddy, goodbye, I love you." But I could not even shed a tear, bro. And to the outside world, they probably saw me as, man, he probably doesn't even care. Look, he's not even emotional or crying, but no one knows what goes deep inside. That's why I don't judge people. I don't know what goes on inside people, but it wasn't until my real first, even though we've had dogs in the past, this is my first best friend that I've ever had, Archie. And I had started up painting, something I would love to talk to you about and share images with you at some point.
You have
Um,
shown me some images. I
oh,
don't,
yeah, yeah, right.
dude,
Okay.
it's insane.
So
We'll talk about
Archie,
this at the end. Yeah. Yeah.
we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
So Archie was half Maltese, half poodle, cutest dog you've ever seen in your life. He was a pup, and I had just started painting, and we would be outside, and I was like, "Hey Archie, what do you think of this color? What do you think of this painting?" And he literally became my best friend. He was my everything at that time. And then my daughter calls me. He's always in the house, but you know, our house backs up to wildlife, and we never leave Archie or any pets outside past. As soon as dusk starts coming in, all the predators starts coming out. So I was out of the house. I was at a dinner meeting, and I called my daughter and says, "Make sure." Or she goes, "Dad, I'm not going to be home." I called Brandon and says, he goes, "Dad, I'm on my way home. I should be there in 10 minutes." And then I get the dreadful call that you need to come home now. Now my daughter's crying hysterically. I didn't know what happened. I says, "Everything okay? Is everything okay? What happened?" I didn't. The last thing was something terrible had happened to Archie, and sure enough, the video just showed not one coyote, but three of them, and they cornered him. And so at night, I went, now I went through 4 o'clock in the morning and just searching and looking everywhere. And as day broke, I found the only thing left was his collar and his head with a collar on it. It was the tiniest little thing. And I think what I've been holding all my life, it just every emotion, every tear, just I cried more than I ever thought a human being could possibly cry, man. I let it all out. I mourned Archie, but at the same time I was mourning my dad and my brother and my mom all combined into one. But that was the first time in my life that I ever allowed myself to cry, and it was I miss him just as much as I miss my family. But I would never tell my kids never to cry. Cry men don't cry, because that's one of the worst things that. But that's just our culture. That's kind of our bringing. And I would never tell anyone to be in one mode, gladiator mode. The worst thing a human being could ever possibly do is not to be vulnerable. And I realized vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is a strength. Vulnerability is how you truly connect. Best moments of my life, transformational in my relationship with my wife, is when I learned to be vulnerable and open up. And I remember the first time we watched a movie together that I choked up on. It was Notebook. I don't know if you ever watched
No, I
Notebook, but
have.
it's one of the most beautiful love stories. And I was choking, and my wife was looking. She goes, "Babe, are you crying?" I was like,
What,
"No. What are you talking about?" I had to
whatever.
get up. Yeah. I was like, I had to go to the restroom. I was like, man, I was, oh my God, it was so funny. She goes, "Oh my God, that
I,
was so cute." I said, "What are you talking about?" It, and again, I really, in my heart of hearts, I saw vulnerability um, being a weakness, and don't confuse vulnerability with being a victim. Sometimes you can, being vulnerable, man, this happened, or being a victim mode. It's okay to open up and share your heart and share your fears and share what you're thinking and some of the things that you're going through, but don't get caught up in the victim, attitude. And there's a huge difference between the two. And sometimes on the surface, they could look a lot alike. And there's a big, big difference between seeing yourself as a victim or allowing others to see you as a victim versus just being honest and true with your feelings. But when things got really, really ugly for me, my surgeries was failing. I had turned my company over to my executives team, something really difficult for me to do. And they were running the day to day. Every one of my organs started failing. I was in the hospital 58 days continuous. Remember the gal that I told you about after me? I got married 2 weeks after I met her.
mhm.
Never left my bedside. And I would be, "Baby, please, I love you. I know you love me, but just go home, go in your bed." Cause she would wake up all, twisted and bent and in so much pain. And I didn't want to see her like that. Listen, I was in no pain because I was self-inducing myself every 6 minutes with narcotics. I was taking Dilaudid. I was on 340 milligrams of Dilaudid. Again, unheard of.
Right.
She was the one enduring it. Half the time I was asleep. 70% of the time I was knocked out and sleeping, but she wasn't. And I was like, "Baby, please, I love you. Just go home." She would look at me like, "What's wrong with you?" And leave you alone. And Dwayne, I have to be honest with you and your audience. For the first time in my life, I asked myself this question. I says, if the tables would turn, would I be the kind of husband if my wife says, "Baby, go out with the boys and have beer"? Would I be the kind of husband that would say, "Are you crazy and leave you alone?" I could not answer that in good conscience. I didn't know. But after I experienced her unconditional love, I would tell you this right now. There's nothing in the world, absolutely nothing I would not do for my bride. The minute you learn to love unconditionally, because you are loved unconditionally the minute your life is transformed because you're not looking for anything in return. And so now, my wife is by my bedside, 58 days. The doctor walks into the room, looks at my wife and looks at my 4 kids and says this to them, Dwayne, I'm sorry, but it's time to call your priest. You know, I was a Christian, and it's time to call your family. He's not going to make it through the night. Now you can just imagine the tension in the room. You could just imagine what my wife was feeling because she was screaming her lungs out. You can imagine what my 4 kids were feeling because they're also equally screaming and saying, no, daddy, no. Like, that's it. The dad that they know is not going to be around. And I remember just with all that noise and screaming and crying, I just closed my eyes. I said, God, please, please, just give me one more chance. Just have mercy on me. Just one more chance to get this one right. And I promise you, I will put it all at the altar. And I opened my eyes and I could feel in my body, man, just a gush of energy I've never in my life experienced. And the only way I could describe it, did you ever go into a bathtub, just to soak in the water and it was still water? Imagine you turn on a jacuzzi and a jet and it goes from being in still water to the jet. And that feeling you get is exactly what I felt, Dwayne. And I looked at my family. I said, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. And my baby girl goes, Daddy, how do you know? I said, sweetheart, Jesus said, my faith will heal me. And Dwayne, growing up as a Christian and believing that with every fiber of my being, so much so that when I said it, I believed it. I wasn't just saying it. The vitals, all my vitals, which was being monitored right before our eyes, started improving. My blood pressure started improving. My heart rate started improving. My oxygen level started, everything started improving. Doctors came into the room in disbelief. They ordered every test you can imagine, from CAT scans, dye, no dye, MRIs, and labs up the yin yang. And by time morning rolled around, I woke up. I thought I was in heaven for a second because there was nobody, no less than 20 people in white jackets, doctors, interns, residents, were all in my room. And the doctor had the report in his hand. And you could see the excitement in his face. He goes, I don't know how to explain this. I said, I do. And that was the defining moment in my life, that God gave me a second chance to get it right this time. But it was my belief and my faith, knowing that. That kind of goes back to, man, faith. It's like I talked to you about heaven, you either got it or not. Well, the same is true with faith. Faith is one of those you can't see, but you either believe or you don't. And if you believe, I promise you, and I promise every single person listening to this podcast, it will transform your life as you know it today. I don't want to see anyone suffering. I don't want to see anyone depressed. I don't want to see anyone anxious. I don't want to see anyone going through dark seasons. We're all going to go through those moments in time, but I want to see him thriving. I want to see him happy. I want to see him changing the world. I want to see him to be the best daddy and the best mommy they could possibly be. I want to see him the best leaders of their companies and their businesses they could possibly be. I mean, what an incredible example to illustrate to your employees when you're operating at that level of love, of compassion, of speaking life into your people. They're not going to want to ever leave you or betray you, which is exactly what happened to me. Because even though I was doing all the right things, took my girl, there was a girl that was with me for 14 years, Dwayne, been to every one of my kids' baptism, been on every family vacation I ever been on, she knew more about my life than anyone else did. And while I was fighting for my life, the unthinkable happened. So this is September, right? That I overcome these challenges. So now it's 2015, December 24th. I get the dreaded phone call and it says Adele from my accounting manager, not my CFO. She reported to the CFO. someone that I had hired early on. And she goes, Adele, I'm so sorry. I know it's Christmas Eve. I just sent you a couple of emails that you need to take a look at, but your numbers are not what they seem, and hangs up the phone.
Oh,
What the heck was that? And I'm looking at the emails, and honestly, I couldn't make sense out of it. I was like, what am I looking at? Like, I don't even know what I'm seeing numbers that I've never seen before, and it doesn't match anything that I'm provided. Because even though I'm in the hospital, they were still providing me numbers that I had an internal board and I had an external board. As a matter of fact, I know you interviewed Dr. Tim Reynolds. Tim Reynolds was on my board,
right.
right? One of the brightest gifts. I love Tim.
The best.
What a beautiful, amazing human being. Brilliant, brilliant man. And we were all given numbers that were cooked. As a matter of fact, my board says this to me, Dwayne, which was probably kind of the bittersweet moment, says, hey, Adele, maybe you should consider never going back because your company's doing better without you than with you. What leader, what CEO, what founder ever wants to hear that?
Nobody wants to hear that.
Uh,
Uh,
nobody went, and I'm like, what? What are you saying? This is my baby. And I remember it was like the bit, like I was heartbroken for a second, and I thought, oh man, my baby has grown up. It's like your child has grown up and ready to spread their own wing and start their own life. And I thought, wow, okay, I could do that. So I got talked into being in the owner's box. And hey, if I need to pick up the phone, I could pick up the phone. But let me enjoy the moment right now. And of course, when that happened, I entrusted them with everything. I signed everything over, full power to do what they wanted to do to to build the company with no limitations. So when I got the reports, shot them to the board, and they said, "Bro, we love you, but it's Christmas Eve." I was like, I know, but please, just whenever you get a chance." And I was doing a lot of consulting for the FBI. I had sat on the FBI board, and I sent it to a couple of guys that I know in forensics, and like, "Bro, it's Christmas Eve." He's like, I know, but whenever you get a chance." And within a couple of weeks, I was told, Adele, um, this is not good at all. And my board says, Adele, I think you may be looking at bankruptcy. I was like, well, what are you talking about? It was like literally just a little over a year, 14, 15 months to the date that I was offered all the cash and stock options. And they're talking to me about bankruptcy. And I could not comprehend. And as we started the investigation, all fingers were pointing to this girl, that she was the mastermind. And last thing on earth I wanted to be. I was like, no, nope, you guys, you don't know what you're talking about. She's the most trusted person in my life. And of course I wasn't seeing it. And everyone was coaching me. The FBI says, Adele, you don't want us to launch an investigation right now. He goes, I will cripple your company. We'll literally, the minute you tell us go, we will have no choice but to come into your company and confiscate every computer, every file, everything else, because that's the evidence that we need. And you're not going to be able to operate your business. So try to work on your own, get as much information as you possibly can, and keep your company running. He goes, we're like a bulls in a China store. It's like, okay, what do I do? I'm talking to my CPA, and he's telling me, don't know, man, they don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And he made me feel a little uncomfortable, but I wanted to believe him. I've known the guy for 15 years. And as I'm finding things, I'm just, all right, let me get back into work. I wasn't ready to come back to work. I was not out of the woods yet. I wasn't dying, but my symptoms and all these issues, of what I was dealing through did not go away. It's not like I woke up one day and I'm miraculously healed. I was healed enough so I could have more surgeries and be able to do more things, like just the more treatment. That was the miracle in itself. But it wasn't like, oh, Adele is healed and you're able to go back to life. So I wasn't far from being able to, um, and I was not ready. I was probably still months, maybe a year out before I needed to go back into work. And so, Dwayne, I went in there. I left with a significant amount of cash, zero debt, zero. Like I pride myself of having zero debt. Like my house. Everyone's like, "Oh, Adele, you're crazy to pay off your house. You should take the money and invest it and buy it." I said, "No, you don't understand. That's peace of mind. I can't put a price on it. No matter if the world is falling apart, I want to know that my house is secured." So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to listen to any advice. I'm just going to listen to what brings me peace.
That's great advice, by the way, for people who are listening. Some
Oh,
some
100%.
sometimes professional advice is not always the best advice for you. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially in these type of listen, it's what brings you peace to your heart, man,
Mhm.
and knowing that no matter what happens, I will always have a roof over my house and my kids, especially the fact that I had lost it at one point. It became like the single most important thing to me, but the same is true with my company. Like, having a 0 debt, I had a significant line of credit, plus I had a lot of cash in the company to continue to grow and do. Well, as I found out, all the cash was depleted. All my books were cooked.
Oh my god.
Um, Lines of credit were taken out, substantial line of credit, and they used properties I owned, my personal home as a personal guarantee, and all that was forged. So now, Dwayne, imagine you or anyone put yourself in that situation. You went from being figuring, you think you got it all figured out, healthy financially, your great grandkids are taken care of, and all of a sudden you're facing the unthinkable. But it's worse than that because the minute that you go to a bank and say, "Bank, this was not my signature. This is fraud," they literally foreclose on everything and says, "We're foreclosing on everything. We'll settle this in court. Let a judge and someone else decide." So now I'm losing my personal house. I'm losing every car, every piece of real estate. I'm literally overnight. My CPA is telling me, "Don't do it." My board is saying, "Adele, if you don't say nothing, you're part of the conspiracy. You're a criminal yourself." And what do you do? And I remember I paused for a second, and that was the first time I actually had a conversation with God, like one on one. I was always like, "God, let's go, let's go." And I remember saying, "God, I actually survived pancreatic cancer to deal with this?" Like, I couldn't comprehend that. Like, that was probably the first time that I've ever experienced, like, how and why, God? How does this make any sense that you make me survive pancreatic cancer just so I could go through what I'm going through? And that was like the most painful thing. Again, my identity, who I am. And it's like, oh my God, I'm the biggest idiot. I'm the biggest schmuck. I'm this, I'm that. I'm putting all the blame on me. How could I be so trusting? How could I be so like how? There was a lot of that eating me up inside, man. I could not sleep, I could not eat, I could not do anything, and I was lost, I was confused, I didn't know who to trust. My CPA was paid apparently like $1,000,000. The freaking guy I know for 15 years. They bought him to help to cook the books.
Oh boy.
They bought the banker, the one that was signing everything else, they bought him in. They bought everyone. I had family members that were in there. They bought my family members. One guy was making 78,000, and now he's making 300,000. They bought everyone. The girl I was telling you about, they tripled her salary and gave her abundance amount of like, it was just unreal, and that's how they were able to do it. It's amazing what money does to people. They literally bought everyone that you could possibly think of. So now I'm liquidating. So I went to the bank and I said, "Look, my situation with my health. It's my understanding. Here's what happened, and I'm asking you to work with me. Here's all my assets. I'm gonna start liquidating. Give me 1 year." I said, "Give me 2 years to get it all paid off." This is the answer is no, but let us get back to you and see if we're able to even do that. They met, they had a board meeting because you could see the look on the banker's face, like just the world dropped. It's like, thankfully, they worked with me. They took me from, I was at the time, a line of credit of 5, 6%. They took me to like a shark, loan sharks at 20 some odd percent loan. You know, they gave me not 2 years, they gave me 9 months, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to pay it off. And I started liquidating faster than you could possibly imagine, bro. And that was also a heartbreaker because I was going to the most trusted people and said, man, I got this piece of real estate, this building, it's worth $1 million. I need to liquidate immediately. Are you interested? What, I got $100,000. Is that good enough? Like,
Oh, wow.
okay, give it to me. Let's go. I didn't care. I was like, look, I could make more money. I built it. I know what I could do. I know what the future looks like. I know what my IP looks like. Yeah, let's go. Like I did, but I'll never forget. It was like I didn't care, it was just and so I was able to literally paid off the banks, got my house released, got the things that were important to me released, 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 released. All my vendors, they stopped sending money in because they were also so I had to pay off all my vendors. Literally, I personally started reaching out to all of them. And listen, I'm so loyal, bro. These vendors been with me for 20, 25 years. And I explained I didn't want the accounting, I didn't want a CFO, I didn't want anyone. Adele was gonna make because I'm the one who brought every one of my vendors on board. And they want to get rid of my vendors. I said, no, these are my friends. So my loyalty to my vendors, bro, even some of them had taken advantage of me. It didn't matter. We all succeeded and we all made a lot of money together. So now I'm liquidating, no clue, Dwayne, how bad the books were cooked. It was like literally, I had to bring someone in from there because I had to fire the CFO. I literally fired everyone, right? Or at least I'll put them on leave of absence. My president, my CFO, like just and and I'm bringing people from the inside. They're trying to figure it out. And bro, like literally, Tim will tell you, like every week it was a new Pandora's box, and like I had no clue of the magnitude of the embezzlement. My health. Now, remember I told you I started out with a cot in my office? I literally had a cot in my office. I had to take medication. I was still on a whole lot of medication. And I would, run my meetings, say at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I could only go 2 hours. I would have to take a medication, self-inject. I would go sleep on the cot. And I would wake up at noon or whatever it is. I would run more meeting. I would inject myself, get knocked out, run a couple of more meetings. And my health started doing this. I started like, and then I went to the emergency room over and over in the course of 1 month. I had been in the emergency room 7 times. And the doctor finally came to me. He goes, listen, I don't know. You were doing something good because you were doing great, man. You were one of the best success cases we've ever experienced with someone who has pancreatic cancer the way you did. But he goes, if you don't change whatever's going on in your life, I'm telling you right now, I don't know that you're going to be around a month from now. And I had to come to the realization that this was so much bigger than me. And the only advice that my board was telling me is to meet with bankruptcy attorneys. And I keep saying, well, this was the lowest point in my life. And, when losing my house was the lowest point. And when my wife gave me the jewelry was my lowest point. And me being homeless was my lowest point. Well, now I just hit another low point in my life. And now everything I've ever built, everything I ever worked so hard, so tirelessly for, I'm losing, including my personal home, my identity, everything, bro. That was an emotional moment for me to to know that, like, all I did was get sick. Like, I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't cheat anyone. I didn't betray anyone. I didn't do nothing wrong. Like, why would I have to go through such a hard, difficult time? And that was a dark, dark, dark moment for me, Dwayne. It was really hard to comprehend, hard to make sense of any of this until my best friend, who happens to be my cousin. He was the first guy I've ever met when I came, as an immigrant. I say when I got off the boat, he was the first guy that I actually met who happens to be my cousin and remained my best friend. And he says this to me. He goes, Adele, I don't know what to say, but I will tell you this. Imagine that your wife and your kids are the one having to deal with this.
Mm.
And that's all he said. And for the first time, it helped put everything into perspective. When I was asking, like, God, I really survived pancreatic cancer to deal with this. Dwayne, I was telling my wife and my son, "Hey, you guys are taken care of, nothing to worry about. You have more, you got like tens of millions of annual income coming in. Here's all the properties. Here's all the investments. You guys are set for life." And I had an attorney, like one of the best world-class attorneys, draw everything up. They met with my family. There was nothing to worry about. And there was a sense of peace in my heart, knowing that if it's my time that my family's taken care of, that got all taken away. And what he said was, can you imagine my wife and my kids are the ones having to go through finding the embezzlement, the betrayal, losing their home, losing this. At least God kept me around so I could go and fix all this stuff. So
Which i-
that
which is
was,
which is what those people were probably planning, was they figured you would never make it out. There's only a 4% chance of making it through pancreatic cancer. So
yeah,
the odds were with them that they're getting out and they're bankrupting your family.
listen, you nailed it, Dwayne. You nailed it. FBI usually doesn't allow victims to participate or join depositions and whatever, but they made exceptions. And I was at a law enforcement office, and they got them, and they were doing one at a time. And I remember I was so sick, bro. I couldn't even sit in a chair long enough. So it literally, there was not couches, but chairs next to each other. There was no armrest, so I was able to kind of lay down. I remember being in my suit, um, and I was so fragile, like so fragile. And I remember just kind of sitting there, and they're just kind of going through the deposition, and I'm just listening, kind of in and out. And at the very end, they ask her this question: Adele treated you like family. You've been to every family function. You've been to every event, on every vacation. Help me understand. Why would you do this? And the response was the first time in my life I could honestly say I heard the voice of evil, and I saw evil for the first time in my life. Up until that point, I didn't want to believe it. You know what the response was?
No.
Shrug of a shoulder. We didn't think he was coming back.
Wow.
Exactly what you just said. That was hard to make sense of. And when you kind of going through that, it's hard to find joy. It's hard to find happiness. It's hard to find purpose. It's hard to find, oh God, you're refining me. It's hard. It's hard to see that. It really is, like, really difficult, because your brain is just like, there's a part of you that wants to, like, like, I was blaming myself. I wasn't blaming anyone else but myself of how stupid and ignorant and naive can I possibly be to trust the way I trusted. So, long story, I end up bankrupting the operating company, but that's the deal that I made with God, right? Because I said, God, I'll put it all at the altar, and I'm ready to walk away from it all. But somewhere along the line, I don't want to say I forgot about that, but that wasn't my priority. My priority was to save the company, to save a source of income, not lose my house, not lose everything else. And now, I'm in and out of the hospital, but I have all the time in the world, Dwayne. And up until that moment in time, brother, I have never read the Bible in its entirety. I start reading the Bible, and it's like I pray every day before I'm reading the Bible. I was literally back to, remember when I told you when I first started my company, I was spending 20-hour days, 7 days a week? I kid you not. I was doing the same thing with the Bible. I would read, I would go on YouTube. I would there was no GPT or anything, and I would just read and educate and hear from different pastors, different people, what they had to say. It ended up taking me 365 days to the date. It was not planned or anything. That was, I call it God's timing. Fast forward. 3 years lapsed. Investigation is done. They got confirmation. FBI and law enforcement come to me and says, okay, it's time to prosecute. I looked at my wife, and my wife says, okay, baby, let's go. She wanted them to rot in hell, not in just jail, in hell.
Understandable.
And I pause and I says, baby, I don't think I can. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? The FBI says, hey, no, what are you talking? I mean, like they were firm. The law enforcement was like, no. The sheriff was like, we're prosecuting. And I said, let me understand this. I'm going to give you my version. And that's just how I feel. If God used them to bring me closer to him, which is exactly what happened, had they not done what they did, there's no way I would have read the Bible the way I did. I had to be in the darkest, lowest part of my life for me to read the Bible. And the only analogy that I could give you and give your listeners is this. If you're driving down, if you're in downtown Toronto, or you're in downtown Vancouver, or you're in downtown Los Angeles, or whatever part of the world that you're in, and your car breaks down, Dwayne, what's the likelihood you're going to pull over, open the glove box, take out the owner's manual, start reading it to fix your car versus picking up the phone and calling AAA or your favorite garage and having them come pick up the car, right? Very unlikely you would do that. You'll just pick up the phone and call them.
Yep.
You agree?
Yep.
But what if you are in the middle of nowhere on a dark, deserted road, no one in sight, and your car breaks down and you have no cell coverage, let alone you have no phone? What's the chances then you get open the glove box and read it to understand it? And so now I'm reading it from from an owner's manual, trying to understand the creator who created me. And what better way to know how he built me, what strength, what endurance, the heart he gave me, the mind he gave me, the creativity he gave me, than to go through the owner's manual. So now I didn't want to prosecute. Despite, and then they're telling me, but Adele, if you don't, they're going to go out and do the same thing to other people. Don't you want to stop that? I said, listen, let someone else stop it. I in my heart of hearts feel they gave me the greatest gift that I know they meant for evil. I know they meant to harm me or my family, but God turned it for the good. And here's what I believe, that every single one of us has to answer for our actions. I believe in Judgment Day. Every one of us is going to die at some point.
Yep.
And if you're a Christian or if you're a believer, we're going to be facing our maker. You just have to answer for the questions. Let him be the ultimate judge. And as a matter of fact, Christ was talking about forgiveness. So 30 years, my wife and I have been married. We had our ups and downs. We had our differences. But there's only one thing and one thing only, Dwayne, that her and I never agreed upon. You know what that is?
Probably this.
Even until today, she still wants to prosecute him and right in hell. And I was like, I don't. But here's a funny story. A year later, I run into the president at the airport. My wife and I were traveling. We're in LA over. And when I saw him, I actually gave him a hug. My wife didn't talk to me the whole flight. She refused to talk to me. Like, how could you? And man, I would tell you this. You want to feel blessed. You want to feel happiness. You want to feel joy. And most importantly, when I was going through my most darkest moment of my life, you know what I used to pray for? One word: peace. Because you don't realize the importance of peace until it's taken away from you, man.
Yes.
Nothing else matters in the world except peace. When peace is robbed from you, it's taken away from you, that's the only thing you would crave. I promise you. Because that's when anxiety and anxious and depression and overwhelm, that's when it robs you. And you can't have 100% peace if you're harboring hatred on anyone. If you have not forgiven anyone, there's not anyone in my life, I would tell you that right now, that I have not forgiven. Many people have hurt me. I forget. I don't approve of what they do. That's a big difference, right? I don't approve what they do. I believe in that judgment day. I don't have them in my life, but I forgave them because that was also medicine for me. And the Bible talks about it. It literally heals me. Um, and it's a self-healing. So I don't harbor hatred because I don't want to I want to be in the purest form that Christ wants me to be. And
Yeah.
but by doing that, it's not like I'm doing this and I got nothing in return. By doing this, I get to experience joy at 100%. I get to experience peace at 100%. I get to experience love at 100%. I get to experience things in the most colorful, most profound, in the most vivid ways that I've never in my life experienced. And that in itself is a gift. And why? That's why I had a hard time wanting to prosecute, because they truly, not them, but I believe God used them to bring me closer to Him. So my darkest moment in my life, Dwayne, turned out to be the greatest gift that God could ever possibly trust me with.
I mean, you know what, to be honest with you, it's so evident through this conversation, that grace that you've been, you know, you've learned or you've been bestowed to, and it's I mean, it's a gift. It's funny. It's like, I've been thinking through our conversation, like one of the things I've been working on over the last few years, and maybe you can relate, but and I think you might, but I was always driven from almost a sense of discipline, like, this push to do things, to achieve, to get an outcome. And really starting to, not really starting, I have, I'm transitioned towards from discipline, which I think, look, discipline, if that gets you through, yeah, awesome, good for you. But now, like, when I listen to you, there's this commitment to, you know, your beliefs, your faith, your values. And, that is more of a pull to something versus the side of discipline of the push. It's like, the analogy that I would give is like, I'm not disciplined. The most important, my sole purpose on this earth is to fill the cup of my wife. That's it.
That's so beautiful.
And,
So beautiful.
and I mean, that's my personal purpose, is to fill her cup. And if I fill her cup, then I am leading by example for my son, my daughter, forever, whoever's looking on. And so that is the one thing I strive towards. That you can't be disciplined to do that. You can't be disciplined to love. You have to be committed to love. And that is what I see in you, brother, is that level of commitment. You talk about turning the other cheek. I mean, you exemplify that in what you've done. Because it would be very, very easy, to act from a sense of discipline to crush those people.
I love you. I love your heart, man. I think your audience just got a glimpse of the real man that you are, the vulnerable man that you are. I don't think they get to see that very often.
I cry more than you think, bro.
But I love you, man. I love you, and I know your wife is so blessed to have such an incredible husband, and I know your kids are so blessed to have such an incredible daddy that is intentional about just serving them in the most beautiful way. When you have that level of discipline to want to go out and do things, um, which is how my entire life evolved around that. Like, I have a goal, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get to that goal, and I have my way, and I have kind of a clear path, and I have my like literally my goals are broken down into, I used to do 5 years and 3 years and 1 year and down to a quarter and down to a month and down to a day and down to an hour. Like, it was that precision, but that came with a whole lot of disappointment. And when doors weren't opening, when customers weren't coming on board, when deals were falling apart, whatever, and that would be so stressful because I would put all my faith in that deal. Oh man, if that deal happens, this is going to happen, and I need this deal to happen for me to do move to the next step. And I would be getting disappointed and stressed and overwhelmed and screaming and cursing and yelling and doing everything else because things were not happening my way. And when things don't happen your way, and I promise you, if you're in business, every single person in business has this ambition, has a dream. You said it. It's funny how we start with a dream and a goal and it never ends up that way. Well, along the line, if it doesn't end up that way, which is a guarantee, you're disappointed over and over and over again. Today, the blessing that I have and the transformation that I went through is when the doors close, when opportunity, it's like, All right. It's a nudge from God that, all right, God wants me to go a different path. And and then I see new doors opening. He's going to close doors that he's probably preventing you from harm. And sometimes we think our ways are the right ways. And I was so naive and so ignorant to think that. Um, but with that, me thinking that, it wasn't just thinking that, it bought stress. It bought anxiety. If we didn't close these deals, if we didn't hit this quota, this is like, but don't confuse, and I don't want your audience to confuse that with laziness. I still work hard. I still give it all I got. I'm still 100% all in. So I know without an ounce of doubt that God kept me around a little longer for a reason. And it ain't for me to go out and build another $1 billion company or do any of these things. Not to say that one day he may want me to do these things, but at this stage, I know my book is really important, but it's not as important as the calling that he has on my heart. So we're changing the name of my nonprofit organization that I had since 2011. 100% of the foundation goes to serve underprivileged kids. Children are being abducted in the most horrific way. If you have not watched the movie The Sound of Freedom, I encourage you to watch it. I think it's one of the most. It's based on a true story. It would bring insight and light to how horrific that is. It's estimated 1.2 million kids are abducted and sexually abused. These are children, eight. These could be your children, my children. They're ages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, just young little girls and boys. And so the Unbroken Foundation is really to end that and to bring a level of attention to that. In the US, there has not been a bill passed for decades. And I think Epstein is bringing light and shedding light that when royal families and presidential, at that level are doing the unthinkable, no one wants to write bills and bring a level of awareness. And the reality is, and this is the statistics from around the world, regardless of how accurate it is, that 25% of the kids are abused at their very home, especially girls,
Mhm.
8% of the boys. So it's one of those topics that no one wants to touch, but what no one's talking about that most kids or that are being abused by a parent, as an example, or a family member, they have been abused themselves. And it's not something they intend to do. It's just something that's their DNA. So not only are we ending that by using the latest and greatest technology, using facial recognition, using license plates. You're familiar with the Amber Alert. I don't know if you guys have the Amber Alert up in Canada,
Yep.
but when someone is abducted, they send you a license plate. Who's driving around looking for a license plate? Well, there's technology that exists today that allows us to turn on cameras and look only for that specific license plate, nothing else. The whole slate is clean. It's just looking for a specific child that's been abducted. I want to find them at the airports. I want to find them at the hotels. I want to find them in wherever these kids may be. That's the only data that's going in there. I want to end at 1.2 million. Less than 1% is actually rescued. The other thing that we started out with talking about a march on Washington, D.C. to bring a level of awareness that is absolutely crucial, and we were, again, estimates upward 1 million people participating in that march. And we said, well, we can't. The largest march ever in Washington, D.C. was Martin Luther King. That was 250,000, or at least estimated to be. And now that we've been working on this for quite a while, we hear numbers in the millions. So we thought, well, wait a minute, we can't do Washington, D.C. What if we did every state capital? And it became, well, if we're doing every state capital, why not just do every city hall? And so we have identified and we said, wait a minute. And God spoke to me in such a most beautiful, profound way. I know humanity, and I know you will agree with this, and your audience will as well. I know humanity, regardless of religion, regardless of upbringing, regardless of background, regardless of your belief, we'll put our differences aside. If there's a meteor hurting towards planet Earth and ready to destroy us, I could see everyone putting their differences aside and would say, we have a common enemy that we need to attack altogether. Do you
Yes.
agree?
Yep. Oh, yes.
I believe truly the same is for a child pedophile. that regardless of your background, regardless of your belief, if you see a child pedophile, you want to bring an end to it. And so we went from that to a global day that there isn't one that exists today where the world pauses and comes together to bring a level of education, a level of awareness, level of technology, a level that to be able to end that. We're trying to get, and hopefully we're praying. I could use everybody's prayer to be part of the World Peace Board that Trump has created. And if we could just get an opportunity to be able to present to the world leaders of why not we use resources that's currently available to us to unite every country together to be able to use our military personnel, our technology, and let's bring this to an end. And not only that, Dwayne, but right now, I know a lot of people in foster care. Sadly, I would tell you this: the ones that I do know are not going to burn in hell. They're going to burn in the hottest part of hell. And I say that because many people are in it for the wrong reasons. They're not in it to treat and cure and help these kids. They're in it for the financial
Yes.
gain, and a lot of them are obscene amount of money in it. FBI statistics, 54%. This was the last statistic. It's a couple of years old. And we're hoping for updated statistic. 54% of all kids in foster homes are abused by their caretakers. And it's estimated that 50% of
Wow.
the kids rescued that are abused, you ready for this? Because you need to be sent down. Run back 50%, 50% of the kids rescued from sex trafficking who are abused, run back. They run away from the foster care to the very place that was abusing them. Because what happens is there's a trigger, the hormone trigger, and they don't know how to turn it off. And they put them in the foster care without the therapy, without the care, without the education, nothing. And many of these kids don't know what to do, and they also experience the highest suicide rate of any category of children. And God has put on my heart. The foundation is 100% um, uh, a nonprofit. 100% of what we do is going to go fund these initiatives, fund the foster care homes to be able to have the world-class therapists and every resource available to them to be able to speak life into them, to be able to love them the way Christ loves them unconditionally, to be able to give them hope, to be able to give them education, and have people from all around the world who want to travel and be part of their life and encourage them and speak life into them and let them know that their past does not define them. What happened to them doesn't define the kids that they are. To be able to grow up in a world that loves them and adores them and sees the good in them, but I want to bring them into an environment that rescues them and speaks life into them in a way that God would want to. And so I say that as we're getting ready to launch, the models, hopefully in the next, probably by June, we're planning the march to be in 2028 that I talked about, that you and everyone listening in, just to keep us in your prayers, to give us the strength and the clarity and the wisdom. We know we're going to get attacked by a lot of people, by the enemy, to slow us down from what God's purpose wants to do with us. That's why it was imperative that all the money coming in to fund these initiatives that we held accountable. So we're publicizing everything, like all the donations and where the money is going, to ensure that 100% of the money is going directly to the sources. Everyone's prayers to give us the resources, the power, the influence to be able to go out and rescue these kids. That's what I'm going to ask of you, and that's what I want to ask of every one of your listeners. That's my only request.
Yeah. Well, you have that for sure. As a matter of fact, I'm highly involved in this effort actually, and have been for since 2005. In Haiti. That's why we were there. I think, as I mentioned earlier, oddly enough, and then I was actually in Haiti again. The movie Sound of Freedom. Actually, I was in one of those missions to free children from the sex trade with Tony. Um, and so, and yeah, so I'm, this is dear to my heart. this cause. It requires multiple organizations working at multiple levels, and hopefully, we'll get to the level where these organizations can collaborate, because it's such a regional effort. The world is a big place, and this is a massive, massive problem. And so,
You just
dude,
you just nailed it.
I honor you
You just nailed it.
for what you guys are doing, and Tim, and love to chat with you guys offline about what you're doing.
Okay. Absolutely.
What's the charity, and how can people find you? And is this all in place and in structure? Or
Correct. We're building the site right now. It shows up as KNG currently, kngnation .org. We're in the process of formalizing the name change to Unbroken Promise. We're working on that because we got everything that we need right now to launch it. And to your point, we want to be the entity that unites everyone under one roof.
Mhm.
Right now, nothing has been passed because everybody's going to Capitol Hill and saying, this is my bill, and this is my bill. And the Senate and Congress, at least in the US, they're just getting, whose bill do they sign? Whose bill? I want to bring everyone in a room. We're going to lock the room up,
Yeah.
chain them up. No one's allowed to leave
And
until we
create one
all
universal
agree.
bill.
Our technology is able to detect fraud, and so we want to align ourselves with people that have the same purpose, the same mission. We don't want to be the ones going out and rescuing and doing all these things. Of course, we want to be the ones that align on partners with the entities that are doing this, and we want to be able to fund them because everyone has a resource issues. We want to make sure that if that's your number one problem, which if you talk to every one of those entities or charities, they'll tell you financial resources are our biggest challenge. I want to get rid of that. If that is not an issue, then we want to be able to help you and fund you. But I want everyone to work collectively. No one takes credit. That's why I want to build this, get it on, and then I'm gonna step aside. As a matter of fact, the entire board is made up um, uh, of of Gen Alpha and Gen Zers. They're there to be the voice. They're the ones going to be marketing. They're the ones going to be talking. They're the ones going to be on podcasts. This is not an Adele movement. Adele is just nothing more than God spoken to me. He brought a lot of people into my life, and those are the ones who's going to be running the day to day, making things happen because they're the ones going to be demanding protection. I want to be able to build it and just say, God, here you go on a silver platter. Now, what do you want me to do? And that's why it was imperative that it's 100% nonprofit, that everyone has this level of visibility. And I want everyone that partners with us to have that same level of visibility. I wanted to make sure it's not about any one individual or any one entity. This is about something so much larger than any of us.
Dude, I love you, man. That's awesome.
I
Congratulations.
love you more. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, brother. I love you. Your story is unbelievable. You are an example of, uh, evolution and grace and commitment to the values and beliefs and faith that you have. I honor it so much, and there's so much here for that people need to listen to. We all suffer at some level, and we don't know it, but there's pieces of us that are always suffering, and it's hard for us to see. As they say, you can't see the frame of the picture you're in. But your story, I hope your story just opens the eyes to people, and gives them the grace that they need. So thank you.
I do too. I love you, man. I so appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for making this even possible. Um, and if it's okay with you, do you mind if I just close
Let's close with a prayer, brother.
this in a prayer and allow me to pray over you listeners? Um, Lord Jesus, we come before you with open, loving hearts, Lord, and we say thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you for trusting me with such a beautiful gift. Thank you for allowing Dwayne to be such a beautiful light of your reflection, of bringing hope and wisdom and intellect into so many people's lives, Lord. And thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast to share my story and share how you impacted my life. And Lord, when whoever's listening to this, if they ever feeling tired and exhausted or overwhelmed or stressed, I ask that you breathe your life into them of hope, of courage, of becoming truly fearless, and to that remind them they're able to overcome any obstacle and any challenge that's in front of them. And I pray this in your holy mighty name, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or coworker who could benefit from this conversation, please share the link. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. And if this podcast has supported you in any way, please support us by clicking the follow or subscribe button.